Hello and welcome to this episode of Unreal Engine Done Quick. Today we will develop a classic example of direct blueprint communication, the interaction between a switch and lights that can be turned on and off. Be sure to pause the video if you want to follow along or just enjoy the content. Let's start. The first step will be to launch the Unreal Engine. I'm using the version 4.25. Next, we will create a game project using the third-person template and with the starter content active. We will give it the name, and here's a flowchart about what we're trying to do, the switch interaction. You can pause it here. But what we're trying to achieve is to create a blueprint, that will be a switch, that when we press it, it will turn on the lights. And it will be a direct communication between these two blueprints. So let's create a folder that will hold all our files so they don't get mixed up with the other stuff that comes with the template. We create a folder switch and create the blueprint BP switch. If I can type properly. Then we will need a visual representation of the switch. I'm using static meshes that can be found in the starter content, so it's easier for everyone to follow along. I'll use this wall also to give a better representation of the switch being pressed on or off. Next will be to create the events for the on and off switch. So let's test if the scale is good enough for this test. Let's rotate it a little, and I believe it is. Yeah, it's alright. So let's create custom events for the switch on and the switch off. Here it will do when we turn on the switch, the static mesh will move a little so it can represent visually that we have pressed the button. Let's check what values are used to us. Maybe 50 is too much, so 10 is alright. Let's put these events to a calling editor so it's easier to test if they are working properly. For example, here I noticed that the value in X was changing. So let's fix that. Our X is -10, and now we fixed it. It's easier that way than finding out later why it wasn't working properly. So now we have toggled the switch. Now we need the interaction volume. We create a box collision, scale it and move it, and set up the collision presets to overlap only pound. And we will test that it is really overlapping thanks to the print string node. We can use this for overlap start and end. Now we know that the interaction volume is working properly. Now let's create the light blueprint. If you check the starter content, you will see that there is already a light blueprint, so let's not try to reinvent the wheel here. Here we check that if we just check the visibility box, it turns off and on. So in the events light on and off, we will just set the set visibility node to on or off. That way we know that it's working properly using also again the call-in editor. Now we're trying to create a toggle event. For this we need a variable, a boolean variable. This way we know if the light is on or off. And when we call this toggle lights event, if the light was on, we can turn it off, and if it's off, we can turn it on. It's really simple. Let's also create some comments to keep the code organized. And the next thing we should do would be to test it. We test the toggle lights using the call-in editor checkbox again, and it is working properly. So let's check what would be missing. Well, let's create the toggle event also for the switch blueprint because it didn't have one. Let's create it exactly the same as if the light blueprint. Let's commit it again so it's organized and test it if it's really working properly. Next would be to check what has been done. So the interaction part is the only one missing. We will need the player to interact with the button, so we need a key to do it. Let's create an action mapping in the project settings and assign it the letter E. We create the input action interact, and with the capsule component we can check the overlapping actors when we press the key E. We will use a filter that BP switch, that will be the class filter, and we will use a cast so we can call the toggle event. The cast will ask the class if it's a BP switch, and with that we can use the function that is inside every BP switch blueprint. So now it's working. Now we have to do the interaction between the button and the lights. Here we need a reference to these lights, and because we are using a direct communication, let's create a light reference and assign it a tooltip to be more helpful. This variable will be of the type of the class of the light, and we can call directly the function called light on and off because it's a direct reference, a hard reference. So with this we should only set up the reference, and we can do it in the map by selecting it in the drop down or with the mouse. And now we see that the switch is turning on and off the light. But what if I wanted to have more than one light? For that we just need to make few modifications. Just duplicate the lights, enter the blueprint of the switch, and convert that variable to an array. With an array we can hold more than one element, so we will use a for each loop, and for each iteration we will call the light on or the light off. All that's missing to do is assign those references, and we can do it inside the editor. Now when we play, we will see that whenever we press the button, the lights were turned on or off as we tell them to do. And this has been a direct blueprint communication between a switch blueprint and many light blueprints. Hope you find this video useful, and see you next time.